The boy's family was so poor they barely had a meal. His parents had no money to pay for his tuition, so he snuck into school and hid in the back row to eavesdrop. But to his surprise, the science teacher was the same principal who had fired him. The boy bowed his head and prayed, asking only for the principal to forgive him. No matter how much William pleaded, the principal ruthlessly kicked him out again. But to the principal's surprise, the child he had expelled from school would later single-handedly save the lives of an entire village from starvation and cold. This film is also a true story. On the way home, William didn't know how to approach his parents. He discovered the village committee was packed with people, including his father. Several timber merchants had arrived, hoping to buy all the trees in the village. The offer was indeed tempting, but the rainy season was approaching. If all the trees were cut down, the rain would bring disaster to the village, and all the villagers would face famine. Most people, blinded by money, signed the agreement one by one. William told his father about the tuition. His father had no choice but to say that after the rainy season, he would harvest the crops and pay for his tuition, but the heavy rain showed no sign of stopping. Moreover, after the trees in the village were cut down, the rains became disastrous, and most of the crops were washed away. When the rainy season finally subsided, a long and indefinite drought followed. The ground cracked everywhere, and the crops were completely destroyed. Now, the whole family was struggling to make ends meet, not to mention William's tuition. Frustrated, William could only accept his cruel fate. Until that night, he saw his science teacher dating the sister of his former friend. William was very angry when he saw it. He thought, "You want to be my sister even though you don't let me go to school?" So the next day, he made an appointment. With his friends, they planned to dismantle the teacher's bicycle. But just as he was about to do it, the headlights suddenly caught his attention. There was no battery on the bicycle. What did the headlights look like? After a long period of research, he finally understood. It turns out that the generator on the bicycle is driven by the wheel. William immediately thought of a water pump he had found at the garbage dump some time ago. If this pump could generate electricity to drive the pump, then groundwater could be continuously pumped out. With water, there would be no need to watch movies or eat meals anymore. With this thought, William immediately sneaked into the library. Then, on the bottom shelf, he found a book on energy utilization. A glimmer of hope suddenly flashed in William's eyes. But then the harsh reality dealt him a heavy blow. The prolonged drought had left no crops growing in the fields. If they wanted to survive, they would have to wait until next year to try their luck. But the family had very little food left. They couldn't possibly survive until that time. In desperation, my father had to remove the iron tiles from the roof. He planned to sell them at the market to buy food. But upon arriving in the city, they encountered a new crisis. The corrupt government turned a blind eye to the famine. Grocery store owners began to raise prices. Everyone was waiting for food to save their lives. But the grocery store owner raised the price more than fivefold. Now even their last hope was gone. The angry father didn't want to sit idly by and wait for his fate to end. So he went to protest with the villagers. When the mother and sister returned home and were about to cook, the neighbor suddenly burst in. He rushed forward and snatched away the flour. The desperate mother could only sit on the ground and cry bitterly. Until this day, several grain trucks passed through the village. The villagers were closely followed by the weather. Seeing this, the mother immediately took out all the family savings and gave it to William to buy food. William immediately set off on his father's bicycle. But when he arrived here, the food queue was endless, and there was not enough food for everyone, so he quietly went around the queue and went to the back door, hid his bicycle first, and then took advantage of the chaos to squeeze into the warehouse through the crowd, and finally bought the life-saving food. That night, the family counted the limited food. The father said that if the family wanted to survive, each person could only eat one meal a day, and then let everyone vote to decide which meal to eat. The mother said, dinner, because she couldn't sleep because she was hungry. But William wanted to eat breakfast, so that he wouldn't have to be hungry all day. At this time, his sister couldn't stand it anymore, and rushed out. She complained to her mother angrily. If Dad hadn't left home to participate in the recreation that day, the food wouldn't have been snatched away by people. As soon as she finished speaking, Mom came up and slapped him hard. The next day, the family sat together for lunch. There was only dough and drink in the bowl, and each person could only break off a small piece. William prepared to secretly hide a small piece, to leave it for Xiao Huang at home. After dinner, William found his sister and said that he was working on an experiment and that if it succeeded, it would help solve the drought problem in the village. But before that, he needed the DC motor from his sister's boyfriend's bicycle. After William left, his sister fell into deep thought. The next day, his sister left home forever. His mother burst into tears holding his sister's letter, in which his sister said that she had decided to elope with her boyfriend so that there would be one less mealtime at home. Before leaving, his sister gave William the DC motor, which was the generator she had been dreaming of looking at the machine. William was determined. He had to rely on scientific knowledge to overcome the drought. Before long, all the parts were put together. William asked his friends to do the experiment together. First, they cut the drain pipe with a knife. Then they softened it over a fire and smoothed it out. This made it into the fan blade. Then they took out the battery and connected it to the power cord. According to the knowledge in the book, They completed the final assembly. At this time, the friend opened the door to let the wind into the room. Now it was finally time to witness the miracle. Everyone suddenly became excited. William's efforts were finally paying off. If they could make a bigger fan now, the water pump could use wind power to pump water. With a constant supply of groundwater, people could grow crops even in the dry season. Excited? William showed his father his prototype. He could still work by removing the battery from the radio. William told his father that if he could make a bigger fan, they could then pump groundwater to irrigate the dry land. But first, he needed to dismantle his father's bicycle for parts. Unexpectedly, his father got angry after hearing this. He didn't believe that dry land could be irrigated with just a toy. He then pushed William to the ground. He even smashed his windmill in front of him. William completely lost his father's understanding. From then on, he gave up his dream. He could only obey his father's arrangements. He cultivated the dry and cracked land. But if there was no water source, no matter how hard he tried, it would be impossible to grow crops. People often died of starvation in the village. Looking at the pile of spare parts in front of him, William didn't know what else he could do for people. Soon, even the little yellow dog at home died of hunger. William held Xiao Huang and cried silently. He had completely lost all hope. It was his mother who finally persuaded his father. Seeing more and more people dying in the village, his mother knew very well that if they didn't make changes now,